This is exactly why I stopped tracking food and went back to intuitive eating. So 2 months ago, I started tracking food. I wanted to get leaner. I wanted to lose some fat, ladies and gents. I'm in great shape, but I'd actually let myself go a little bit for my standards, right? And I was about, I don't know, 1, maybe 2% body fat higher than I normally am. And it wasn't just for vanity reasons, right? For how I looked, it was my gut wasn't the best, right? The digestive system was a bit strained, and I just knew I needed to do it. So I started tracking, but now I stopped. I quit, right? I quit tracking because I'm going to do a mini bulk instead, right? Now, firstly, like I said, 2 months ago, let myself go a bit for my standards. Drop some fat within the 2 month period. I dropped around about 3 kilos, I think, 2.5, 3 kilos. Decent amount of fat, probably came down, I don't know, 2% body fat, something like that. And it worked. But what happened was I used to bodybuild, right? I used to track meticulously. And I used to actually have, when you do bodybuilding comps and when you get so obsessed, even if it's not competing, you get so obsessed with your body. This is why it's a big trap. And I'm always coaching clients to shift their mindset away from focusing too much on the body, because it gets obsessive, number one. Also, you always end up disappointed when you're focusing on losing fat, for example, or even building muscle and bringing up certain parts of your body. There's always going to be room for improvement. So I went down that rabbit hole years ago, and it took me to a pretty dark place. Didn't realize it at the time, but I was really obsessed. I was, like I said before, I was binge eating. And with the tracking is a thing called orthorexia, where I used to be super obsessed, where I would weigh everything. And, it was like I say, 6-7 years on and off I tracked for. So recently I decided that actually, because I was tracking, when I track, I eat less, which is great for losing fat, right? It's great because I'm more aware. But the problem is I can take it too far. And actually for men in particular, it's actually worse, really, for men, all in all, to be in a big calorie deficit or just be in a calorie deficit, period, if they've got too much stress coming in. Remember the stress bucket analogy, right? You got a stress bucket, guys, women, all the same. We have personal stress. We have financial stress. We have stress from training. That's an added stress. Lack of sleep, added all these stresses. And it's a very fine line. I'm not 20 anymore, so you can't get away with as much when you're closer to 40. I've got about 1.5 years away from 40, or just under 2 years away from 40. And all that to say, you can't do what you used to do. And tracking and being in a big deficit is going to be an added stress. And for me, I'm an entrepreneur, work hard, work long hours. I choose to, love what I do. But with that comes a lot of stress. And maybe in the audience, things out. A lot of my clients, for example, they've got kids, they work long hours. A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of high performers, a lot of people that work long hours, and it'll impact sleep, right? Stress and sleep go hand in hand. And if you're putting yourself into a deficit, a big deficit, it will mess up your sleep. And when you're sleep deprived anyway, the body loses less fat. In fact, 0.55% or 55%, say 50%, half of the weight people lost when they were sleep deprived was muscle. Their body was paring down muscle instead of fat. For the people that had over 8, and I think they had over 8 hours sleep, they retained all their muscle and lost all fat. The group that had, I think it was under 6 hours actually, they actually lost 55% of the weight that they lost was muscle. Muscle is gold in terms of your metabolism. Look at it that way. In terms of metabolically expensive tissue, it's gold, right? Very valuable tissue in terms of energy output, right? Cost your body more calories. So all that to say, I cut it out because I was having a negative impact on sleep, and I was just being a bit too extreme with it. And even if, and for me, my girlfriend was joking, because what I'll do, what a lot of people do when they track, is they underestimate. So, they don't get as meticulous. I mean, I get pretty meticulous on the weekends. I was a bit more loose in terms of weighing all the food and stuff, but I weigh most of my food and I'm pretty diligent with it. When I do it properly, because when you are tracking food, it's unless you're going to do it properly, is it going to be better than not tracking if you're just kind of putting stuff in the app? Yeah, because you're going to get more awareness. But if you're just completely guessing and you're not weighing anything, you're not learning anything, right? Because the whole valuable part of tracking, what it works for, is making you aware of portion size, right? You put something on the food scales, then you start understanding what, 300 grams of beef looks like on your plate and what 300 grams of rice, raw weight or cooked weight looks like on your plate. And then you actually have more, it can improve your relationship with food, but it can also go the other way. So, yeah, it was impacting my sleep at times because I was putting myself into a deficit when I didn't need to be some days. I was underestimating my calories. So I was tracking the calories, but sometimes I'll put more in than I need to, right? And that's a bit of a subconscious thing because there's fear of, God forbid now I eat too much, right? And again, you get a lot of that. It's not trauma, but it probably is a bit from bodybuilding, right? It's a bit of some scars you're going to get, right? From being extremely obsessed. I'm not a guy who does things halfway, right? I go all in. So when I used to compete, I would go all in and I would do it properly. I would get on stage shredded. So that is still going to be in the back of my mind. So negative impact on sleep, getting a little bit too obsessed. And also what I notice is, and again, the advice I give to clients, right? I need to give it to myself. This happens a lot where I actually looked and felt a lot better on the days when I ate more. So it gets to a point when you've been in a deficit. In my case, for like the past 2 months, it was a very subtle deficit. It wasn't a big deficit most weeks. And I was in a small deficit, probably 10, 15% below my maintenance for about 6 weeks. And after a while, like I always talk about, it was a metabolic adaptation, right? So my body had adapted, and then it starts getting more efficient with calories, right? It starts slowing down your resting metabolic rate, which then means your body starts burning less calories. So I noticed it kickstarted my metabolism, and I had a boost of energy on the days where I would eat more. And I would do that strategically, where I would eat more on the days I lifted, for example, have more carbohydrates. I was carb cycling as well. I've still been doing that, where on the days I lift, I'll have more carbohydrates and generally just more calories to partition that into strength recovery and muscle gain. And then the days where I wasn't lifting or not lifting as heavy, I was trying to put myself into a deficit. So I noticed then when I bumped the calories up, sometimes I slept better, not always. But that can be a double-edged sword, right? Because I noticed when I cut back on calories initially, my gut improved. And obviously, when inflammation improves, that can improve your sleep and stuff. So yeah, all in all, I was like, right, I want to do a mini bulk. And, I'm going to be fully transparent here as well. I still have a bit of a disorder. I still check my abs. Like I was going kind of back into being hyper-focused on the body because I'm focusing on losing weight. Again, this is something that everyone needs to be mindful of. That number on the scales, a lot of people attach their self-worth to that number on the scales. And really, there's other metrics you want to pay attention to, right? If you do want to focus on body composition, take photos, do measurements, do a body stat machine, great. But any of those metrics that you're using to measure physical progress in terms of your body, it can be a slippery slope. And for me, I was getting a bit too obsessed. I was checking my abs more in the mirror, you know what I mean? And like I say, I was pushing it a little bit too far. And also, what I want to do now is an experiment. Let me go back into the challenges first, right? Because my girlfriend and I have unpacked a few things. Now, my girlfriend has similar issues to me, right? Where she gets obsessed. Like her weight has come down a lot because of me tracking, right? We always talk about social influence. Because of me tracking my food and trying to be in a deficit, she's already super lean. As a side effect, she wanted to track anyway. So we're going to Brazil, right, in December for 6 weeks. So we wanted to get a bit leaner for that anyway and just tighten things up a bit. So then she started taking it too far. And her weight, right, when I met her was like 60 kilos. This is 2 years ago, by the way. The other day, she was weighing like 56 kilos. And she's looking leaner than ever. And the mad thing about this as well, this is definitely something to talk on. She's been in the gym and she's like jumped on the scale, looked at the number. And one of the girls in the gym saw her and gone, "Oh, you look amazing." And then another day, "Oh, you look amazing." She's getting positive reinforcement for being super lean to the point where she's actually a bit too lean now. I mean, not to the point where it's really going to like damage hormones and that, but she's treading on thin ice with how lean she is now, but more the psychological impact of it. And then, she's like, "I want to eat more to build muscle because I know I'm taking it a bit too far. I'm kind of cutting back a bit too much now." But then because I'm doing it, then she's kind of like, it's kind of like she's trying to not compete, but she wants to do it too. And you can push these things too far. Now, getting leaner and being aware of the foods they're eating, is that the worry that most people of you listening to this need to worry about? Most of you, or most people in general? No. In fact, most of you listening probably need to tighten up, probably need to dial things in, probably needs to fine tune things with your nutrition, right? But a lot of people, if you're resonating what I'm talking about with this stuff and getting obsessed with like the numbers and tracking and, it can be a problem. So that was another thing, is my girlfriend, the influence on my girlfriend. And these are kind of signs. I was like, you know what, I'm going to shift gears now, right? I've got Brazil in 4 or 5 weeks. And this is, again, advice that I give to clients. And when I take clients on, the majority of clients that I take on, I'm actually getting them to, when I say eat more, right? Be careful when I say this, right? Because when I say like eat more and build muscle and get leaner, right? It's not as black and white as that. But a lot of clients I take on, because some of them may have been under eating protein, right? Either grossly under eating or just not having optimal amounts. Some of them were not getting a good balance of nutrients and the quality of food in, like micronutrients in particular, which is hard to do when you're eating really low calories as well. So as you increase protein, you increase calories in some cases, then you not increase the training necessarily, the amount of time they're spending. I like to get them to spend less time or the same time they were spending before training, and they always get way better results because they're changing the signal, right? And this is what I'm going to do now, so I'm going to transition into. So they're sending a strength signal. They're sending a signal to the body to say a muscle building anabolic signal, right? Which says we need strength and we need muscle. And you do that by a proper training stimulus, right? Which where a really good nuanced training programming comes in, right? So that's what I'll do, and that's what I'm going to do now. So it's almost like I thought, you know what? I actually, because I've got leaner now and I've leaned out a bit, I actually will feel better and get stronger, number one, but I'll look better if I start lifting more and start eating more. So this is another big mistake that people make. And again, what I'm doing with myself is obviously the same approach that I use with clients. Why? Because it's based on science and it works, gets results, is I'm now going to add in more strength training. So this is what I did strategically. I was like, right, back at the end of August, I did an experiment, if you can remember, right? I actually was just lifting twice a week, and I was just doing full body twice a week. I'm just going to kind of brain dump here, ladies and gents. It's like therapy for me, right? But I think you're going to get a lot of value out of this. So if I mention this, back in August, I was training twice a week because I wanted to work more. So what I started to do in August, I got up in the morning, had my electrolytes, had a cold shower and coffee, and got straight working. Now, I never do that, right? That's not what I do. I wanted to test it out to see if I could get more work done. I was behind on a few projects, did it. Did I get more work done? A little bit. Was it better work? Not really, right? All the work you do, whether that's work on your business, work in the gym, it's not just showing up, actually. Showing up that's the minimum requirement for these things. Doing what you do well is the important thing. And when I look back and I reflected on August, I was more anxious. My output was probably about the same in terms of quality of work. I probably got a little bit more volume, a little bit more reps on certain things. The quality was about the same, if not worse. And then 3, I just didn't feel as good. I didn't feel as energetic, and I noticed like more anxiety, my mental health. I just noticed my mental health wasn't as good. I was more overwhelmed, more anxious. So what I did then is I said, right, that didn't work. It was a good experiment. September, okay, I've gained a bit of body fat. What I'm going to do now, and that was another thing as well, right? When you go to the gym more and you train more, you make better decisions with food. That's not to say that I wasn't making good decisions, but again, your emotional health is going to basically determine how many calories you eat, right? Not determine. It's going to have a big impact on your food choices, your mental and emotional health. And for me, I was a little more anxious, like I said, a little more stressed, doing more work, not having that release in the morning of training. So I noticed I was just eating a bit more. I would just have that extra bowl of, Greek yogurt and whey protein, for example. And that extra bowl, when you're doing that every day, that's thousands of calories each week, which equals fat gain, right? So that's what I was doing in August. September, right, I want to tighten up. So I'm going to ramp training up. So I added a third workout in. Actually, I think I added a third workout in. Maybe a fourth workout, but the fourth one was super light. And then I just started basically tracking my food because I wanted to tighten up, lose a bit of fat, be more aware of food again. And slowly I've just been adding. So now, this is coming into November now, I'm going to go into 5 sessions. So this is where people go wrong when it comes to getting results, building muscle, losing fat, is they try and throw the kitchen sink in all at once. I'm going to change everything. I'm going to do 5 workouts a week from 0. Terrible idea every single time. So clients I take on, I look at where they're at and I go, right, bam, let's start slow. Start slow as possible. Do the minimum because you've got to stick to that forever, ideally, right? It's not one of those things that you want to look at doing short term with getting in shape, right? And strength training. What can you stick to forever? No one asks themselves that question. I know it's a bit daunting, but that's what I'm always looking at with clients. What can they stick to? And the same goes for me. I can stick to whatever you throw at me. But for me, I know that my body, I'm going to feel better. This is a big thing as well. You feel way better when you get the right dose of volume and intensity that you can recover from. If you throw the kitchen sink in straight away, your body's stuck in the recovery trap and you're not going to feel as good energy-wise. So anyway, all that to say right now, I'm doing 5 sessions a week, right? Started from this week for the next 4 or 5 weeks. So I'm training more strength training, and I'm going to eat a bit more, and I'm not going to track. And if I do track, what will happen then when I'm trying to build is I'll cut back a bit more than is necessary, right? And I don't want to be doing that. I want to be building, and I'm in a good position to do that. Now, do I need to track food? No, I don't. Like I said, I did it just because I wanted to get the awareness. I wanted to tighten up. But yeah, these are all things I wanted to touch on today, right? That's mainly the reason why I've stopped. And now I'll just go back to, tracking for 2 months is a long time for me, to be honest. I think I tracked for 2 months. Yeah, it was 2 months, over 2 months, actually. Normally I'll probably track 1 or 2 months of the year, you know what I mean? Maximum. Yeah, and that was that. So look, most people don't have to worry about these issues with being aware and self-monitoring, like tracking. But for me, that's the reason why I've switched gears. So one thing I wanted to say as well, on that note as well, if you want to basically build muscle and drop fat, or if you feel like you've stalled when it comes to your fat loss or getting leaner, or muscle, or both, and you want to increase your energy so you can improve the quality of time you spend with your family and in your business and stuff, do my metabolic assessment. It takes 2 to 3 minutes to do, and it's free, right? You get a score, you get a plan for your body type on exactly what to do next, and the best path to get the fastest results possible. Links in the show notes, right? So go check that out. So back to the mini build. I'm doing this now because I want to build muscle, I want to feel better. I want to boost testosterone levels, which boost energy. And I just like it. I love training, right? It's great. It's exciting for me. And once you've dropped a bit of body fat as well, and you've trimmed away some of the fat, it's a good time for me to throw that in there, right? But also, this is something I want to be really clear with as well. A lot of people, if you're overweight, you carry more fat than you want to carry, going straight into a build is normally the best option, right? Now, for me, the reason I took the path that I did is I think I built a bit at the same time anyway. I added in training so I could send more of a building signal, right? When I started cutting, when I started tracking the end of August, right? I added like 1 or 2 sessions in. So bang, I speed my metabolism up. I send a building signal. Then at the same time, I track and I put myself into a little bit of a deficit. Build muscle, lose a bit of fat, right? So that's why most people, if you're stuck, yes, tracking can really, really help and being aware, of course, but you want to go straight into a building phase. And I always talk about reverse dieting. 70 to 80% of people need to go straight into a reverse diet. If you've been struggling, if you're overweight, right? I know it sounds counterproductive. Hang on a minute. I'm overweight. I'm carrying more 20, 30 pounds more than I want to. And I've got to go into like reverse dieting? What? Well, ask yourself this question. Number one, a lot of people, they have been dieting down, trying different diets, or they might have lost a load of weight. This happens a lot. Lost loads of weight following, let's just say carnivore, for example, right? I follow carnivore, lost loads of weight. But then after I've lost a lot of weight, I'm stuck and I'm just not losing any more. And I've plateaued and it's hard to see any progress. My body's just not responding, or if it is, the results are very slow, right, for the work they're putting in. And that comes down to the metabolic adaptation that I talked about. So it's all the stuff I'm talking about here with maximizing results of muscle gain, being aware of food and actually eating to build, like I'm doing right now. I'm eating to build. I've got that in my head. Because again, like I can take things too far, right? So now in my head, I'm like, no, I'm not going to track because I'm eating to build. And when you have that mindset and you have adequate protein, you're fueling your body to perform well in the gym. Because the bottom line is to build. Put simply, are you adding weight to the bar? Are you getting stronger? And this is what most people really need to focus on, right? If you want to build your metabolism up, you want to turn your body into a fat burning machine, firstly, do the metabolic assessment. But secondly, stop focusing. If you're someone who's like, you're getting frustrated with that number on the scales in particular, you have a bit of a poor relationship with the scales and, the body stuff and body image, just focus on getting the weight up on the bar, adding weight to the bar, right? Increasing weight, getting stronger in the gym consistently. And look at it this way. I explain this to clients, right, that I get to build and reverse diets and get to the next level with their body and habits, is switch the attention away, right, from the body. Yeah, we're still tracking that stuff, but 90% of the time, are you getting stronger in the gym? Are you getting good sleep? Because you have to get good sleep, right, to recover properly. And obviously they've got everything else covered from me, right? The training stimulus, they're doing the right amount of volume, etc., etc. But you need to be really focused on that. And when you get stronger, your metabolism speeds up, right? So this is what I want you to really connect to. When you constantly get stronger week upon week and you're recovering properly, right? So it's one, you're going to get stronger, but your strength's going to plateau if you're not recovering properly, right? If you feel like you're getting tired in the daytime or you have to lie down after training, you're doing too much volume, too much intensity, and your body's stuck trying to recover instead of adapting, right? The body wants to adapt to what you're doing and then build muscle. As it knows what the adaptation is, it's got adequate recovery. It'll adapt by building muscle. It's trying to respond to the insult you're putting on your body in the gym, right? So all that to say, getting stronger equals faster metabolism. The only way you get long-term success in this game is by developing your metabolism. And you've got to do that for a period of time, a long period of time. And you've got to stop messing around, stop starting on different paths. This is what people do. I did this thing, it didn't work for me. How long did you do it for? I did it for like a month or two. Okay, great. It didn't work for you. Wow, that's surprising. You need to be in it for the long haul. And the thing is, a lot of people have got overwhelmed. They don't know what to do. They don't know what path to take. Most people need to just focus on building muscle and strength consistently, right? And look, I know I've switched gears here now. I started off with why I started tracking all my challenges and everything else. But I want to give you some nuggets here. If you focus on doing that, let's say you want to develop you want to speed your metabolism up, you want to build muscle, because if you want to lose fat, right, let's be honest, most of you want to lose fat. I walk around shredded all year round, yeah? Or not shredded, well, only recently, right? I wasn't before that, like I said earlier, but now I would say I'm shredded, right? I walk around pretty damn ripped year round, and that is because I spent so much time building muscle. The same goes for Janini. So any ladies listening, right? I know sometimes it's hard to relate to a man, and let's be honest, men, we can get away with a lot more food. Why? Because we weigh more, right? We weigh a lot more than women generally, in most cases. And Janini, her maintenance calories are like 2,500, 2,600 even, for her to maintain her weight, right? So if she eats 2,000 calories, she loses weight, right? And that's because she spent so long over the years building muscle and spending time doing that, right? Literally focusing on building muscle for years. There's no shortcuts, ladies and gents. If you're not focusing on that and you're getting impatient and you're like, I'm gonna just lose fat now. If you gain that fat back, right? This is a simple way to put it. If you lose fat and you find you gain it back at any point in your life, and if you're still in that place where you might get a bit leaner, then you gain some fat back and you're kind of almost back to square one at some point, or you gain a significant amount back when you go on holiday, or the holiday season comes or whatever, you haven't built your metabolism up and built enough muscle to actually warrant losing body fat if you want to keep it off. And when you keep gaining fat back, your body gets better at storing fat. Big problem. Look at longevity, right? We look at Alzheimer's, diabetes, heart disease, and there's another one, which I forgot. Those metabolic diseases, a lot of that will be cured by building muscle. There's research on this now, right? Building muscle is known as the longevity organ. Why? Makes you more insulin sensitive. But what really, really matters is the quality of your skeletal muscle. And the quality of muscle basically means, is it lean, good quality muscle, which contracts properly, or is it full up of intramuscular fat, right? Think of like a steak, yeah? Grain-fed steak. It's got way more fat in it, way more calories, right? Marble. Grass-fed steak is leaner, right? It's got less fat on it. And the quality of that muscle is better, right? Because it hasn't got as much fat and all that kind of stuff on it. So that's really, really important. So when you look at longevity and physical strength, right, how physically strong you are, is the number one indicator to how long you're going to live. The grip strength test that people do, right? So if you can just focus on that, ladies and gents, right? Focus on building muscle. And with reverse dieting, like I said before, if you do it properly, you shouldn't actually gain much weight. It really depends on the person, you know what I mean? Like, it's more about body composition. I reverse diet with lots of people, and they lose fat, a significant amount of fat, whilst eating more, right? That's what happens when you kickstart your metabolism, because when you kickstart your metabolism and you eat more protein, you fuel more, you don't just eat more, but you get the right training stimulus, your body starts burning more calories by itself, right? Just by you sat on your ass, your body's burning more because of that muscle building signal. It's in an anabolic state. And when you actually add that muscle to your body, it costs your body more calories. So that's where you want to be with that, right? You want to really focus on, and sorry, all that to say, building slowly but surely. If you reverse dieting, your weight stay the same, or if it goes up a bit, right? If you want to build properly, it might go up a bit. Let's just say if it goes up by 1 pound or 2 pounds a month, right? But you lose fat sometimes if you've got a good reservoir of fat to lose. But even if you don't lose any fat, when you build muscle, you look way better. You look tighter. Muscle is dense tissue. It makes you look tighter and more sculpted and way better just by adding more muscle to your body, right? So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there, right? So the big takeaways for you here is, what I wanted to say is, I didn't mention about clients. With tracking, yes, I get most clients to track at the start as a starting point for the first kind of 2 to 4 weeks so we can see where they're at. Depending on the lifestyle of the client and how busy they are. I know we can say busy is an excuse, but even just taking photos, like in my app that I use, I get people to just take photos of their food, and then we can see what we need to change. Obviously, lay out a meal plan, all that kind of stuff. That's obvious. But it's more about teaching them how to fish, right? So with tracking teaches a man how to fish. A meal plan, if you just give someone a meal plan, you're not teaching them anything. You're giving them a fish. You're feeding them for the day. Tracking or being aware or even self-monitoring, like taking photos and adding them to the app with my clients, they're still self-monitoring, right? Which helps you make better decisions. And the research is clear on weight loss. Self-monitoring, like weighing yourself if you haven't got an issue with that. Weighing your food, tracking your food, or even photos, those kind of things. People have better long-term success with self-monitoring. So takeaways, tracking worked until it didn't. It's a great tool, but now I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to eat to build. 2, I noticed that I still have issues, bit of body dysmorphia. Don't want to call it orthorexia, which is where you get obsessed with like numbers and weighing and stuff. But it was like putting myself under more stress than I needed to by putting myself into a deficit when I was already stressed. Oh, that's what I was going to say earlier. For guys as well, it's worse because when you put yourself into a big deficit, your cortisol levels are higher. And when your cortisol levels are higher, your testosterone is lower. It's like a seesaw effect with cortisol and testosterone. It's pretty black and white. And men, if you tank your testosterone levels, we all know how horrendous that is, right? It's going to have the worst impact on every area of your life, including your mental health, your sex drive, your motivation. Horrible place to be, right? So that's why it's really dangerous for men if you put yourself into a big deficit or you're not doing things the right way and you're actually starving your body too much or too big a deficit or just even a calorie deficit when you're under too much stress, right? So that was another thing I learned from it. The other thing is you can get, positive reinforcement. I remember when I was shredded as well. It's interesting how when I was at my most shredded, probably unhealthy because I was leading up to the stage, I was getting congratulated and cheered, right? So you get positive reinforcement. It's weird, right? For being shredded when it's not healthy. So that's something everyone's got to bear in mind as well. Someone who is lean, relatively lean, and they've got muscle in their body and they're strong, that's health, right? Not someone who's super shredded and they've got like a disorder with food. Not saying I've got that, right? But I'm just holding my hands up and saying I can take it a bit too far and get a bit too obsessed. So yeah, just back to, I eat all whole foods anyway. So that's that. And then number 3, I would like to wrap this up with in terms of a takeaway is mini builds and mini cuts. So if you focus on, building your metabolism up first, so you're in a place where you can cut because you want to be able to get away with a lot of calories before you can cut. And build first, but then once you get to a place where you've built a lot of muscle, then you can do mini builds and mini cuts. And how I do that is like what I'm doing myself, right? I've just got a new training phase that I'm doing now for 4 weeks, and I'm going to eat more food now, and that's going to be a mini build. And then if I wanted to say cut again, I'll coincide that with a training phase as well. And that's kind of the way I do it and cycle it, especially when it's building because it's a new stimulus, right? And the body loves novelty, so it's a good time to increase calories. And that was that, ladies and gents. So if you want to work with me, right, I'm actually going to be taking on a handful more clients this year. And I know a lot of you have been sitting on the fence. Now's a big opportunity, right? So if you're looking to, really optimize your metabolic health and create lasting change with your habits, so you can not just get in shape physically, build muscle, lose fat, but keep it off for good and build your metabolism up so your body just turns into a fat burner machine, and you not just add years to your life, but you add life to your years, right? Quality of life to your years. Then drop me a DM. Sorry, don't drop me a DM. Click the link in the show notes, right? The one-to-one form is in the show notes. And also, if you want that metabolic assessment, you can get that for free. That is also in the show notes, my friend, right? So click that. And on YouTube, I'll put another video relating to this topic up here in the corner. So make sure you watch that, because it'll give you more different perspective on a similar topic that we just talked about. Cheers.